welcome to another of these, like, Professor Thoughts, whatever I'm gonna call them. Today we're talking about the event everybody watched on Saturday, which may or may not be before today, because my furnace is broken, and my house is too warm, and I'm dying right now, and so I don't know if I'm gonna edit, or I might edit, who even knows. So, look, this is a big old event. It's a big deal. It cost money, like $80 if you wanted to watch this legitimately. And everybody's talking about it because, like, oh my gosh, it's an MMA fighter again facing a legitimate boxer, except this time facing a legitimate boxer actually still kind of at the height of his career instead of, you know, like, basically the joke point of his career. That's a Mayweather reference. Yeah. Anyway, so look. I'll tell you my thoughts first before we get to, like, thoughts about the thing. So, like, my thoughts about this whole event and what my thinking was going into it. So, the whole thing with this, like, boxing, like, influencer boxing stuff where we've got, like, the YouTube side, and then on the other side is, like, hey, these people who are not professional boxers jumping in with professional boxers, you know, but they're combat specialists, and so, like, whoop-de-doo, like, this should be great and exciting. You know, a big part of this is really a bunch of gambling, because everybody in their right mind is thinking the MMA guys got no shot because they're not really trained boxers. They haven't spent, you know, a decade plus just practicing this specific form of combat. They've actually had to practice a number of them. And we all know what would happen to, and it has happened, every single boxer who got into an MMA ring, which is, you know, unless they go up against, you know, basically nobody of any real serious skill, they're just going to lose, right? So, like, this is what, it's always this, like, weird crossover sport thing where, you know, we're talking about these like they're supposed to be legitimate fights, but in reality, we know they're not, because anytime one of these folks moves over to the other person's sport, they're at an immense disadvantage because that person has spent all their time practicing the things required for that sport, and that other person has not. Which means going into this, you know, everybody's kind of expecting that Ngannou has no real chance. And that is the correct position to take, which makes what actually happened rather interesting. So this event was hosted by, or disseminated by ESPN/Top Rank. And there are two big reasons for why it was poor. One was a technical side, the actual presentation of the event, and the other was the commentators. So the first thing, I'll get to the technical. We'll just get at it, right? This was housed in Saudi Arabia and Riyadh, and it was at a new arena they had built in like 90 days. Two arenas specifically. They had an undercard arena and this like magical special arena with like light shows and holograms and all this kind of weird stuff. And even like this massive round stage where the singers, because they had singing opening acts, which is kind of cool, would like come back forward and then the like ring would come up, right? So it's a really interesting event, and when you're looking at it, you're going, wow, this is kind of beautiful. But ESPN/Top Rank had the worst audio coverage for the event. There's actually was a moment in the streaming that I was watching where they had two audio tracks being layered over each other during one of the singing acts, so it sounded like he was, I don't know, like almost incomprehensible, like stuttering and everything. You know, the visuals were okay, but like the sound was just bizarre. There was one point during all the musical acts when the sound was actually quite good and you could hear the music and even a little bit of the crowd, but for most of this event, it was like dead space. You barely heard anyone, and you'd see all these people, you know, and you would think, oh, we would hear some of the crowd effect, and like none of that. That was a big problem because it just felt like I was watching an event during COVID when there literally weren't people really there. The other thing is the commentators. Now, here's the thing. I just said, like, Ngannou's not going to win, like, he has no shot, right? All of these kind of things. But here's the problem. I'm not being hypocritical in the way that I'm presenting the event. That's my position. That is the only position I would have held. And that's what the position I would have held throughout the whole thing. But the thing with ESPN commentators, or Top Rank, or whoever was actually there, is that they repeatedly say Ngannou has no real shot while interviewing people from boxing and MMA who say he has no real shot, while simultaneously pretending that what we're going to watch will be a legitimate fight. And it feels weirdly disrespectful to say both of those things at the same time. Either Ngannou has no real shot here, and we're just getting, essentially entertainment. That's what we're going to watch, which they repeatedly said. Or Ngannou is actually someone worth watching, and he's just an underdog, and we're going to actually get a good fight. Now, we actually got the latter, which I'll come back to. But they just seemed incapable of sort of presenting a respectful presentation of Ngannou. It was just constantly reminding, like, Ngannou's going to lose, Ngannou's going to lose, he's not going to do it, he's not going to do it. And that, to me, just feels, to a point, kind of disrespectful. So let's get to the fights themselves. So the first fight was Itauma versus Bernath, which ended with basically Bernath getting TKO'd. It just seemed like Bernath didn't really have the chin for it. He was comparatively slow. Itauma looked fine. Apparently, he was like chasing Mike Tyson's record for being a heavyweight champion by a certain age, which is like kind of neat and makes for a story. It's a little bit of an underwhelming fight, but he handled Bernath fairly quickly. First round TKO, done. And then we went to the Makhmudov, I forgot that wrong, versus Anthony Wright. It was another TKO in round one. The ref stopped it because Wright was poorly defending himself after a knockdown. Honestly, this is probably the right decision, right? Most of these lower level undercard fights, with a couple of exceptions, are basically people fairly early in their careers or reasonably early in their careers. And with heavyweights, you're just dealing with much more significant damage from hits. And if you're not defending yourself properly, that's kind of the only thing you really can do, right? Then we got the Bakole versus Takam fight. Now, Takam has been in this field for quite a while. He is, I wouldn't say a household name. I would put him as essentially just a step above a journeyman. He's not one of the top figures. He's another Cameroonian, which is also kind of neat there. There was a round 4 stoppage. Basically from body shots. Bakole just powered those shots in. Now, this is one of those things where, like, in heavyweight, heavyweight is like this weird division where you can have guys that are like 60 pounds more than the other guy. Heavyweight's one where I actually think we should have more weight divisions. To me, I don't think it's right to have guys fighting when it's like a 60 plus pound weight difference, especially if you're dealing with somebody who is weighing that much more but can throw punches effectively. He's just not like a big chunky guy who can't really move. Bakole, in fairness, really can't move very much, but he didn't need to because Takam didn't have much to bring back for it. But this is just one of those things where I just think we need like regular heavyweight, we need the like super heavyweight, and like, the sumo heavyweight or whatever we want to call it. Then we get Joseph Parker versus Simon Kean. I will just say that as for boxing fans, you may remember Peter McNeely, who faced Mike Tyson. I was thinking of this because I kept mentioning Mike Tyson. And Simon Kean reminded me of a slightly less frenetic Peter McNeely with the way he was moving his arms. I'm sorry, Kean, but that's what you look like, bro. He looks stiff. Kean looked just stiff. Parker, I've never really found a very interesting boxer, but is a very effective heavyweight boxer. He's very technically sound, and he just, frankly, was better at handling Kean, and in round 3, he KO'd Kean, and it was just by uppercuts, which I will say, as I said in a previous video, right? Don't neglect the uppercut. It's kind of one of the most neglected punches, I feel like, in all of boxing, and here was a guy actually doing it. I will note, with a fight we're going to get to eventually here, they kept showing Fury's uppercut of Dillian Whyte, which I will note is not the first time Dillian Whyte has been knocked out by an uppercut. That guy's chin needs help. So I know the commentators were talking about, like, this is to see where Parker's career is, and my thinking of that is Parker's career should be fine if the heavyweight division is actually healthy. The fact that we're arguing that his career may be on the rocks is because the heavyweight division is not healthy. So it was an interesting fight. It was fine. It was good. And then you got actually what I thought was one of the better ones for the night, which is the Fabio Wardley versus David Adeleye. Apparently there was some animosity / a brawl, supposedly, between their respective camps, and I guess Wardley took a hit to the head. He did have a noticeable, almost look like a cut on the bridge of his nose, but I'm not sure if that's what they were referring to in the fight, but there's basically animosity going into this. This is the fight I think everybody thought they were going to get out of the Fury and Ngannou fight. Wardley pretty much had it all in hand. from the beginning. Frankly, there were moments of shots from Adeleye that were noticeable, looked good. It looked like he could do something, but he was just outclassed at every stage of the fight, and it just kept getting worse. Some good body shots, some great head shots, and then eventually it went down for a TK call for the ref. I know that Adeleye was not particularly happy about that call. This is another one of those where, frankly, it's better to have the ref call it than you quit. The ref is looking at this and going, you're not defending yourself effectively, and you're just going to get pancaked, and the damage to your head, it's not worth it. Honestly, he was going to get leveled by Wardley. I didn't see him coming back from the knockdown in round 7, and then we got the TKO. It was a good fight, though. Overall, the thing that unfortunately mars it is the end. Adeleye actually pushed and then threw kind of a light punch at the ref's ribcage, and I gotta say, I know it's in Saudi Arabia, and so the rules are maybe different there, but a fine and a suspension to me don't feel appropriate there. That is too easy. To me, this is a crime. The ref is not a combatant. He has not signed on to be intentionally struck. Obviously, refs have signed on that they may be unintentionally struck during a match, which has happened, and there are some funny moments of that. But Adeleye just lost control and went after it. Now, thankfully, he seemed to pull himself short. He didn't throw really hard. But at the same time, that's a thing that I just don't think can be tolerated in boxing. You can't strike refs, even if you disagree with a ref call. You just can't do it. Now we get to the big cojones. That is the Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou fight. This went the distance. Nobody thought it was going to go the distance, and yet it did. And I actually don't feel as good about this fight as I suspect other people do, and there's a reason for that. This is a fight between a guy who had basically 4 months of formal boxing training going up against the supposed best heavyweight in the world right now. The pound-for-pound best, the guy everybody wants, and he goes not only toe-to-toe with him for all 10 rounds, but he actually gets knocked down by the guy. I just didn't feel like it's bananas to me, because one of two things is true. Either Tyson Fury has fallen from the greatness he was demonstrating in the Deontay Wilder fights, where he overcame that draw, which probably wasn't a draw, to some enormously convincing wins over possibly one of the top 5 heavyweights in the world right now. I mean, that's one possibility. The other is Ngannou's way better than anybody thought he was, and even more so than Tyson Fury. I suppose there's a third option. Ngannou's better than Tyson Fury thought, and Tyson Fury didn't train well enough. The commentators speculated that was true. I don't know if that's true. It's hard to say, because Tyson Fury is weird, and so we don't really know. And the thing is, either way, the outcome of this is it does not make the heavyweight division look good. I mean, this whole event mostly doesn't make the heavyweight division look terribly good. There really is very little in this division that feels sound, that feels really put together, that feels, outside of the actual words coming out of mouths. Right now, this division feels like it lacks charisma. And part of that's because here we've got this is the fight we're getting. This is like one of the big fights of the year, is the top contender guy against an MMA fighter. And it's not what should have been this event, which is Deontay Wilder should be facing one of the other top guys, possibly Anthony Joshua, or it should be Usyk versus Tyson Fury in this. That's what should be here. It should be multiple stages of the best guys facing the best guys in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, right? And it's not. It's this. And so here we get this fight that is, entertaining. It's a good fight, but it's a fight that shouldn't be a good fight. It shouldn't be, right? Ngannou should have been out. He should have been done in the first 4 rounds, but instead he got a knockdown on Fury because Fury played a stupid game and he won a stupid prize because he just didn't take Ngannou or it did appear to me he didn't take him as seriously. And the result of that is just, I just got to the end of it. I just felt like this is the state of the heavyweight division now. That the best heavyweight in the world is going up against somebody with almost no formal training in this particular field and is squeaking by a split decision. I mean, I had it a little bit more to Fury just because I think he held the ring better overall. I really only gave Ngannou the 10-8 round and then one other round in round 8. There were a couple rounds maybe you could argue for Ngannou, but for the most part, I felt that Fury handled the ring better. But at the same time, like, it just wasn't a super convincing fight. I just never felt at the end of it that I was watching the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time, and I don't know what happened. And it just feels sad to me. You know, I mean, it was fun to watch, and, like, the event was overall was fine. It just did not feel like I was getting the best of the best here. So anyway, yeah, so that's kind of how I felt about it. I mean, I know I'm being kind of like, I'm poo-pooing it a little bit, but, you know, some part of that is just, I just kind of am tired of this, like, year-long process of heavyweight boxers at the top of the cards not willing to fight each other and arguing about fighting each other. This is my favorite division. Heavyweights, this is the division I love the most. Like, watching old clips of Mike Tyson is just, it's a beautiful thing to watch. It's some incredible boxing. And now I look back on a lot of it, and I just feel like, you know, with exception to the Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury trilogy, we just don't really have anything I would argue is at that caliber of excitement. And a lot of it is, it feels like everybody's afraid to face each other. And they're afraid to get losses on their record. And my response to that is, tough crap. That is the risk you take in this field. And the best thing that the heavyweight division can have right now is more the big guys facing risks of losses, actually getting those losses, and then having to come back from them. And unfortunately, the guys who have come back from it, I think, somewhat poorly. And the guys who have yet to have those losses appear to be too afraid or too unwilling or too contractually negotiating themselves out of it to actually do this. That wasn't quite a sentence, but I think you get what I mean. So that's kind of how I feel. But, I mean, at the same time, people got punched in the face. So it was kind of fun in that respect. Anyway, look, you let me know what you think. You know, I'm sure you have your own thoughts about the event and how it felt, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. And so if you want to let me know, go down into those comments there, leave a thought. Maybe I'm wrong about some things. Maybe I missed something. I don't know. Look, let me know in the comments. Please hit that subscribe button. And I also have a Patreon if you want to support me there, which is just /TheJoyFactory. So, yeah. Peace out. Have a good day. Don't do anything illegal. Stay safe. Don't die. Bye.